and thanks again to the Tom Brock team. Fantastic keeping that cultural memory of rugby league alive and strong. Well, greetings rugby league fans, and what a joy it is to deliver the 26th annual Tom Brock Memorial Lecture on one of my favourite topics, PNG Rugby League and its new NRL team. I've made a lot of predictions over time, most of them wrong, but one I got right was somehow that the passion of the people of PNG and what they have for rugby league would eventually deliver them to the promised land of their own NRL team. PNG didn't appear much on the radar of a young boy in rugby league land. Hazy tales of riots when the President's 11 toured, players popped up here and there. They were the invisible men of rugby league from a land far away, until one day when Kumul's captain, Bal Namapo, appeared out of a portal in a mighty Canterbury Bulldogs shirt, and on the front page of Rugby League, dressed as a bird of paradise. The feeling of excitement stayed with me with Marcus Bai, Adrian Lamb and others, and when the PNG Hunters fronted up for their first match at Redcliffe in 2014, I decided I would capture the moment. I went up to Redcliffe Oval and I saw the very first Hunters game, and I came back filled with adrenaline at that awesome experience. It was something I'd never seen, a level of rugby league passion that the Queensland Cup had never seen before. I stayed up till 1 a.m. writing what I saw, and I sent it to John Harms, God love him, at the Footy Almanac, my first editor. And they published this article here, From Big Bal to George Benson, a love letter to PNG Rugby League. That was 2014. And that began a journey of exploration for me in awe of Rugby League's Pacific Revolution. Since then, I've kept my eyes on the Pacific Revolution, including writing about the Hunters' first final series. I went up to Townsville. Convoys of cars came down from Cairns, wild support, and they even cheered Neville Costigan, who was playing for the Townsville Blackhawks. They loved their one PNG player on the other side. And there's also a Fijian team in the Ron Massey Cup by the name of the Kaiviti Silktails, and I was there for their very first game, writing up. They lost 56-6, but like the Hunters, it didn't matter. They were starting their journey. That all culminated with my book, my passion project, and that was providing an alternative narrative for one of the trailblazers of the Pacific Revolution, Olsen the Big O Filipina. To be his biographer will be hard to top as a life highlight, and before he died in 2022, he told me that getting his book out there made him feel lighter. And that was a comment which made my whole arduous journey worthwhile, because he was my hero growing up, and I thought he had a terrible time when he was here. So a quick orientation of what is the PNG Rugby League world. On the left, you have the Highlands there with the cluster of rugby league clubs. We've got the Hela Wigmen there. Mr. Yuwa's our special guest tonight's home mob, which I understand is 2 million people strong there in the middle of the Highlands. And up here we have Marcus Bai territory, Rabaul and New England and New Britain. And also Bougainville over here on the right, which doesn't have a team, but which has figured quite significantly in PNG Rugby League history. So what do we know about PNG? We know they've got a new team, but it's always been a fragmented mystery for us, and for decades we've been fed the exotic frontier narrative of the game to our north. Wild bus ride road trips, tribal influences, witch doctors, and there's a couple of stories on the left here. One is, why are you a man short? Well, boss, we were crossing a river and the crocodile got number 10. So, that's from 1973. And you'll see at the top here, which was the original drawing. You've got the white guys playing, quite caricature, PNG, and even a Chinese fan under the tree. And again, the Chinese have an incredibly central role in PNG Rugby League history. But to understand this new team, this bursting new river of opportunity to our tropical north, we need to go back to its source. Like cricket in India, the roots of the game are the natives watching the colonials playing their own game and becoming so enamored they wanted to try it themselves. The contact came a lot later than the Indians, which was in the 1800s in India. 1906 was the first formal contact between Australia and PNG, and 1932 is the date of first contact in the Highlands. The very first games we have, reports are in the Wau and Bololo districts in the 1930s, homesick Australian miners with some spare time playing unsanctioned games. We don't have any match reports or images of these early games, but the photos I think best represent the early ones are these ones, just playing in pretty rustic environment. I never had explained to me what the photo on the right was, but it looks pretty amazing. A mixed team coming out of the trees, all their fans up there out of the jungle and on to play rugby league. Real frontier stuff. And of course, for the historians, the first state of origin in Bougainville. So in World War II, Queensland versus New South Wales soldiers had a game in Bougainville, and that was the very first, they say, the spiritual first game of state of origin. 1949, we have the birth of PNG Rugby League. So after the Second World War, PNG is firmly in Australian territory, and rugby league starts on the mainland in Papua in 49 and the New Guinea Islands in 51. The teams were all white, but the locals watched on and caught the bug. It was physical, tough, and two tribes could contest against each other in a codified way. For the next 9 seasons, the official game would be played by all white teams. I love this scene in particular. It just looks like out of the Australian bush, but if any car aficionados can tell me what that blue car is, I'm assuming it's an Aussie car.
Peugeot 403.
Peugeot 403. Look no further, I knew I'd have a hero. So the first curious native league fans were the Motu people from the swamps of Hanubuada in Port Moresby. These are considered to be some of the shanty towns of Port Moresby. During rugby league season, every Sunday the Motu villagers would walk to Ponabe to watch the white man play. After watching for 3 years, 2 pioneers, Tua Kapina and Mahu Rarua, had seen enough, and they organised the Port Moresby Native Rugby League Association in 1952. However, much like the American Negro Leagues operated in parallel with the white leagues in American baseball, PNG Rugby League for the natives kicked off in 1952 as a separate competition from the white teams. The Motu people lived in villages in stilts over the ocean. It's a pretty cool picture there. That's the Motu people, and that leads straight into swamps. But on terra firma, they were hard as rocks, and they loved the game. Over time, the Australian teams in Port Moresby could not ignore the infectious adoption of the game by the native Papua New Guineans. And in 1955, the Papuan Rugby League decided to put 2 of the best teams from the Port Moresby Native Rugby League Association as a curtain raiser. In American baseball, which had similar segregated leagues, the quality of trailblazer African-American baseballer Jackie Robinson was so great that he became undeniable and the pioneer of the sport. To gain respect, the native PNG Rugby League community needed a similar breakthrough figure who could transcend the racial boundaries. And from the Tolai people of Rabaul up on the far reaches of the island of New Britain, that's also the Hanubuada condition. So the Hanubuada team in 1974 went from those swamp-playing guys to winning the whole competition in 1974. And I think that's pretty cool that they were the first guys and they were able to get to that level of excellence against well-funded city teams, so pretty cool. But that pioneer I mentioned is Sir John Caputin, the man who would change it all. He was an outlier, a larger-than-life figure that was from the Tolo people, and he'd been educated in Rockhampton Grammar, and there's quite a theme of some of the heroes in this story being educated in Australia. He was the top junior athlete there, and he learned rugby union. Highly intelligent, was one of the first PNG people to get a university education, getting his degree in the University of Hawaii. He was athletic, agile, well-spoken, handsome, and was not in awe of the Australians, having lived and played amongst them. An Aussie called Bill O'Brien from the Coned Tigers decided to select John. And that's a reminder that for every pioneer we must acknowledge that there was one person that enabled the opportunity. In 1960, John Caputin ran onto the Baroko Oval to play for the Coned Tigers, smashing the colour barrier and starting a new era for PNG Rugby League. He was then selected for Papua in the inter-territory match against New Guinea in 1960, and the people of Port Moresby flocked to watch their speedy winger play. John Caputin endured racial taunts from some in the stands, but he was such an outstanding player that he could not be denied. His legacy was immediate. A year later, he had two more native teammates in the Coned Tigers, and they won the title. He was also the first native Papua New Guinean to marry an white Australian girl, and it caused an enormous stir at the time. So that's the 1959 Coned Tigers pre-integration, and that's the 1961 Coned Tigers with the integrated team, with Sir John Caputin sitting at the bottom with a big smile. With this opportunity in play, the floodgates opened, players flocked to clubs. In 1962, a second grade was added, and in 1968, a third grade was added to the competition, providing enormous opportunities for native players. John Caputin went on to become the PNG's first Commonwealth Games sprinter, and he became the Foreign Minister and the Minister for Finance before being knighted in 1997. Interesting when they talk about what the quality was like of this PNG league in Port Moresby. Well, playing for the Conair Tigers was Mark Harris. He was the golden boy for the Conair Tigers, and by the looks of him, he should have learned to duck there. That nose has copped a bit of traffic. The quality was high. It included players of a big bruiser, Mark Harris, and he went on to play for the Roosters and 11 times for the Kangaroos. There were some very good quality players up there. There was also an origin PNG style. Papua would play New Guinea every year, and I love that at the top there. Rugby league, the greatest game of all. They even knew up there. And every year they would play these two matches, and really cool photo there on the right, the New Guinea side that beat Papua. By 73, a lot of the Australians are starting to go home, so there's still only a few white guys in there, but it just really does go to show that there was quite a solid integration at that time. In 1966, there was a schoolboy tour of Australia. 8 out of 10 matches were won. They played barefoot, and including a win over a New South Wales schoolboys team. And also, I was hoping to have Blake Solly here from South to announce this to him, but there was a 1996 PNG tour sponsored by Souths, and they played it at Redfern Oval, and the PNG team won. So it's really fascinating. But probably my favourite photo of the whole book just shows just how much the game has captured the hearts of PNG people from 1969, the Lay Snacks Tigers down there on the coast versus Chimbu. Tigers on the left, Chimbu on the right. You've still got a few Aussies there with the trophy and managing, but really almost handing the game over now to the native people. So I really love that shot. So we have independence. In 1974, the Rugby League International Federation agreed to admit PNG as the 5th member, meaning they could play test matches. Despite the progress and integration of the game, independence was coming, and PNG needed its own team to bring the 780 language groups together. And in 1975, in the same year PNG was born as a nation, the PNG Kumuls took flight in their first match against Great Britain. The man to lead them on this mission was an unlikely hero, Paul Chue, 3rd generation Cantonese Papua New Guinean, also known as Kumul number 1. His family lived in the big Chinese community in Rabul, which had survived a brutal Japanese occupation in World War II. He was 3rd generation, and he'd been sent to boarding school at St Joseph's here in Sydney and learned to play rugby, the first Asian to play in the first 15 when he was selected in 1963. He went on to do a commerce degree at Sydney Uni, and on his return, he became the best player of what was a significant Chinese, if you look at there, most of the Rabul Chinese team, of which he's the captain, most of the Rabul rep team are Chinese. And I found out there was another 4 teams in another place called Madang. So there's a great untold Chinese rugby league story in PNG. Paul Chue would go on to work for 50 years in the family soft drinks business. The Kumuls lost that first test 40-12, but it was beside the point. A great journey had begun. And then he passed the captaincy to Sean Dorney. Sean Dorney is a legendary figure of the rugby league world in Papua New Guinea, one of the best players of the Papua New Guinea League, and also the ABC correspondent in PNG for 30 years. So really interesting character, very highly regarded by the native players, and he captained the Kumuls to a victory over New South Wales country, which I think is a pretty great achievement. But he was a short-term captain, and part of his role, very similar to Jerry Alexander in the West Indies, the last white captain before they handed over to Sir Frank Worrell. He provided a mentoring role. They selected their next leader, and that new hero emerged, who was a police cadet from the Lay Snacks Tigers, and it was John Wagambi, the chosen one. And he was considered the best leadership material. And in 1977, here he is getting chaired off the field after the Kumuls beat France 37-6, their first ever international victory. Just wild times. Here are those proud pioneers. Having seen the footage of John Wagambi on YouTube, quite definitively, if the pathways had been open, he was a rugby league player, very fast, great leader, great tackler, good rugby league brain, but most importantly, he was the leader they needed to unite these two factions of Papua New Guinea, which had the Papua and the islands, New Britain and New Ireland. So he brought everybody together. But the people of Papua New Guinea was now starting to really believe, and the revolution called for a new hero. So we're down to really one. By 1977, there's still an white Aussie player in there, both coaching staff. That, if anybody has an extra large of that jersey, I'm totally in for it. at Marrickville Market, so I offered a guy $200 to replace his shirt, and he had a big XL roomy one. Was wearing it there, and he knocked me back and thought I was a bit creepy, but that's how much I'm into that beautiful burnt orange. And if you find one online, there's a spotter's feed. So the answer came from the remote atolls again of Bougainville in the form of Lauta Atoy, who in 1981 was scouted and signed for the Redcliffe Dolphins in the Brisbane Rugby League, the first overseas PNG professional. If you look in the middle there, you'll see Arthur Beetson in that team shot just behind Lauta. And he played in the grand final and squared off against Mal Meninga. And that was broadcast on ABC radio right through Papua New Guinea. Everyone was hunched around their radios listening to their hero taking on big Mal Meninga. And he went on to be an MP in the Papua New Guinea Congress representing North Bougainville, and he's still with us. Buoyed by their first overseas player, the Kumuls needed to make the biggest step in rugby league. They'd played against France, they'd played against Great Britain, but they'd never played against their old colonial master, the Kangaroos. In 1982, that changed as the Kumuls hosted the Kangaroos at Lloyd Robson Oval in Port Moresby. The stands were packed to the rafters, and for those who missed out or couldn't afford the 1 kina entry fee, they became branch managers in the trees, as you can see in the light poles. A star-packed Kangaroos won 38-2, but the Kumuls were competitive for significant parts of the game. In 1983, Phil Ralder, who I couldn't get an image of, but he went to cold northern England to play for Bradford. I can only imagine how he coped up there, being the first out of tropical PNG. But he punched through and opened up a fantastic pipeline that now has 7 PNG players in Super League, and more than 50 PNG players have played professionally in England. Swinging back to Australia, the New South Wales Rugby League remained the last frontier for a player with native PNG heritage, and Sandy Campbell blazed into rugby league like a meteor, signing with the Canterbury Bulldogs in 1986. He was fast, pretty flamboyant, and he loved to score tries and dance. And New South Wales Rugby League media lapped it up. From Samurai Island in Milne Bay province, he was put into a Brisbane orphanage at 4 and adopted. He grew up as a mad sportsman, representing Queensland in league, baseball, wrestling and athletics, before eventually landing at the Bulldogs. He shocked the rugby league world when he started as an exotic cabaret dancer with the Chippendales. One media report gave Sandy the nickname Dancing Sandy from Samurai, and another the Dancing Bulldog. He went on to play 93 first grade games. And although the PNG community were proud that someone with PNG heritage was performing on the biggest stage, they didn't have a homegrown hero yet in New South Wales. One had grown up in the PNG system. They had a few close shaves. Tara Gao had a trial run with Balmain. Aribo Tamakal had a training stint with the Roosters. Derai Kove. In 1988, Derai put on the North's jumper and ran out the North Sydney Oval for the Bears, a landmark moment for PNG Rugby League. Kove was from Porabara, another stilts-on-the-water shantytown community north of Port Moresby, and was a brilliant player in the Port Moresby Rugby League. Norths liked what they like and signed him for the 88 season, and he played 2 matches before heading north to the Newcastle Knights. The big moment was when Darrow played for the rest of the world. He was the only PNG player to play on the rest of the world team, and that beamed into Papua New Guinea and made Papua New Guinea chests burst with pride. He was also famous for his trademark sidestep, and he was an early prototype of Benji Marshall, would do incredible sidesteps. Amazingly, he was joined in 1989 by a second PNG player, Arnold Krewanti, who played 2 matches. He moved to Wagga Wagga to start at the RAAF base, and so impressed in Wagga that Newcastle up and signed him. 1988 was also the year Kumuls captain Bal Namapo was signed by the Bulldogs, a hugely popular figure from Chimbu. Bal is remembered for starring as captain in the first ever win over the Kiwis in 1986, a huge moment. He was the big man of PNG Rugby League and played 27 tests. Although he arrived in Australia in a blaze of publicity and played strongly in reserve grade, he couldn't cut it, but he was a legendary figure and went on to be a district administrator on his current. There was a 5-year lull before the next milestone moment, but it was worth the wait. Canberra's David Wesley was born in Panguna in Bougainville and stayed there until the age of 9 when his father died of cancer and the family moved to Cairns. He was spotted by the Raiders in a Queensland under-19 match and became the first PNG-born player to win an Australian Grand Final when the Raiders triumphed in 1994. He was a high standard who played a combined 143 NRL games, and he also played 5 times for the Kumuls. But Wesley's heroics were surpassed a year later when Adrian Lamb, born in Rabaul, with Chinese and native heritage, became the first PNG-born player to not only play for Queensland, but also win a State of Origin series as captain. And PNG are overwhelmingly Queensland fans, and to see one of their own in Fatty's miracle team in 1995 was a new high watermark for PNG fans, especially when he chose to play for the Kumuls over Australia. And there's a very funny story when they were talking about picking Adrian Lamb and whether he was really qualified for Queensland because he was born, and Fatty said, well, New Guinea was joined onto Queensland in 4 million BC, so he's good enough for us. So not only did Lamb play 14 Origins, but he captained Queensland in 3 Origin games, including a series victory, and his son Lachlan also pulled on the mighty burnt orange, red and black jersey as PNG's first father and son. Although Australia's next PNG superstar would arrive in the years to come, it was in cold, wet England that the next chapter was written. Stanley Jean arrived in Hull in 1996. He was born poor in the ghettos of Goroka and had a history of gang warfare and clashes with the police. He only became interested in rugby league when the local police engaged the local rascals through the game. Police gave them boots, gear and fed them in the barracks. Stanley really epitomised the new face of the Kumuls, how a poor street kid could rise up through hard work and great character to become a superstar in the English Super League for a number of clubs. Although he never played in Australia, his performances for the Kumuls showed he was a great player and a great leader, and a cult hero for millions of underprivileged Papua New Guineans. His book, Daydream Believer, is absolutely hilarious and truly one of the great rugby league breeds. I recommend it. The Super League wars created opportunity, and Tom Riley stepped up to play 34 matches for the ill-fated Gold Coast Chargers, while John Wilshere got his start with the Western Reds, the Storm and St George Illawarra. In 1999, David Buko was recruited from the Goroko Lakanis to play 8 games under Tommy Radonicus for the mighty Western Suburbs, and he would also go on to captain the Kumuls. He scored 2 tries and played in Western Suburbs' final game at Campbelltown when they were massacred 60-16 by the fresh, hungry, luminous Warriors. He was not picked up by the joint venture, collateral damage by the merger, and he died tragically at 29 from typhus. And the fact that I never got to ask him, there he is there, I never got to ask him about some of the cross-cultural moments he would have had with Tommy Radonicus. as the last Western Suburbs teams went slowly down the gurgler. That would have been quite a moment to capture. By the late 90s, rugby league was credible and gaining respect internationally. PNG Rugby League. It still lacked visible star power in Australia, and a new hero emerged in the legendary Marcus Bai. Marcus was born in the tiny village of Ulamona in West New Britain, and after showing promise was picked up by the Port Moresby Vipers team. He had a breakout moment with the Kumuls at the 95 World Cup, went to Hull, and then was signed by the Gold Coast Chargers in the ARL competition, and he also played in the rest of the world team against the Australians. In 1998, this new Melbourne Storm team recruited him, and he was in blistering form, winning the Dally M Winger of the Year, the first PNG player to achieve a high honour in Australian Rugby League. In 1999, he won his first premiership with the Storm. 2000 won the World Cup Challenge, scoring a try in the Storm's win over St Helens. He then moved to the Leeds Rhinos, scored a hat-trick on debut, and became a cult hero, including a Super League win in 2004, completing his record of premierships in both England and Australia. He moved to the Bradford Bulls and then retired in 2006, a cult hero in 2 countries. In addition to individual players, the addition of the PNG Hunters in 2014 was a seismic change to rugby league. Funded by the Australian government, they were unlike anything we'd ever seen before. Unknown talent given the opportunity to blossom in the Queensland Cup, one of the toughest rugby league competitions in the world. The stars of the PNG's Digicel Cup blossomed in Queensland, and the team is always competitive, bringing glory in 2017 under Michael Murram, a PNG coach, and consistently feeding players into the Super League. One hunter made the big leap to the NRL, who represents the heart and soul of PNG Rugby League, Justin Olam. Justin came from Gon village deep in the highlands in mountainous Chimbu, and as a Papuan he complemented the other great hero Marcus Bai, who was from the New Guinea Islands. Both Bai and Olam are the 2 major NRL players of PNG heritage who did not play junior football, and Justin represented the new face of PNG Rugby League. A humble, highly intelligent Highlander who completed a Bachelor of Applied Physics before he got serious with his rugby league. He blossomed at the Melbourne Storm, winning the premiership in 2020 against some incredible competition. He won the Dally M Centre of the Year award. In PNG, he's on billboards and products and represents the dream for millions of young PNG boys. And really great to see that he's now at the NRL spearheading the grassroots component of the new PNG investment. Justin Olam is a part of a generation of PNG players that have followed in the footsteps of Marcus Bai that have all been high quality. Rabaul-born Neville Costigan played 6 times for Queensland in State of Origin and 13 times for the Kumuls. Goroka-born James Seguiaro moved to Cairns, made the junior Kangaroos, played for PNG 6 times and had stints with the Cowboys, Sharks, Broncos and Sea Eagles. Port Moresby-born David Mead is an incredible talented player who moved to Lismore as a 12-year-old. He was picked up by the Titans and played 147 games for them and also had a stint with Catalans. Alex Johnston was born in Sydney with links to Sandown Province and Saibai Island, a shared island heritage with Hamaso, Tabuai, Fido. A true one-club man, Alex has played 242 games for South Sydney, and at the time of this speech he's 3 tries short of the great Ken Irvine. A true legend of rugby league who's represented both Australia and the Kumuls. And Port Moresby-born Xavier Coates, a 6'4", 108-kilo giant winger, famed of his finishing and acrobatic leaps for the Broncos and the Storm. And he has represented both the Kumuls and Australia, and he's played 13 Origin games. So that's a great reminder that success is built on the shoulders of the giants who came before us. And tonight we acknowledge those journeys, often frustrating ones, that have delivered this amazing opportunity. I've forgotten, we also have an incredible Melanesian rivalry has developed between the Kumuls. And people don't know, but since 2000, the rivalry between these two, and Fiji Bati are a fantastic team, the rivalry is 5-1 in favour of the Kumuls. So the Melanesian bragging rights very much rest with Papua New Guinea. So we come to the greatest moment in Pacific sports history. PNG set to enter NRL as the 19th team. Everybody's happy, except these guys, the Daily Telegraph. NRL stars to be offered danger money to play in PNG expansion. And then Volandis counters back. Papua New Guinea government to build 150 million rugby league compound. So that ball's going up a higher level. But what we've actually got is structures and resources. And we've never ever known how PNG would go if they had the same access to what we have down here, and we're about to find out, which will be fantastic. And of course there are naysayers. Over here, Ryan Girdler, not sure why you're piping up, Ryan, but last thing the game needs is another floundering franchise from Triple M. I'm not sure about this guy in The Economist in the middle when non-rugby league people try to write about rugby league, but Australia is trying to rock China in Papua New Guinea. And then we have, of course, the old usual suspects. Corey Parker, I can't imagine uprooting my family and going to live in PNG. You'd have to live in a compound. I think it's fraught with danger. Shillington, I'm pretty sceptical. Paul Sutter, more dangerous than Afghanistan. The Australian genius diplomacy or a bonfire of taxpayers' money. And Corey Park, it's going to be difficult to recruit players. On the security one, how many games, quick guess, how many games have the PNG Hunters hosted Queensland Cup teams in Port Moresby? 50? 100? 102. Not one single documented security incident in 12 years. So that, for me, is an absolute, not one team has backed out. Been a few moments, of course, but not just one single documented. And there's a whole bunch of journalists who would love to report anything that went wrong. We can be sure that nothing's been brushed under the carpet. So, and why do these guys on the right not matter? All these talking heads who come unqualified and sitting in their rugby league mansions, well paid for. Because right now it's a Pacific game. This is the latest breakdown. 51.5% Pacific or Māori, 10% Indigenous. That's almost 62%. That's 62% of the NRL that have no stigma whatsoever in going to Papua New Guinea. They don't care. That 32%, the Anglo-Celtic, they are the ones, and this team can survive without them. If some of them want to join the team and be part of the most extraordinary sporting experience available, good on them. But those guys on the right, they have no say whether this is happening or not, because it is. And as far as talent goes, the last time I checked, will they attract talent? The last time I checked, player agents still get paid on the net amount that comes from a player's contract. Papua New Guinea salaries are tax-free. And as Paul Keating once said, always back the horse called self-interest. It's always trying. So thanks guys for your comments, but they're actually irrelevant to what we're moving forward, so thank you. So the PNG team, is it fair dinkum? The negatives have come thick and relentless from the usual suspects, but I'd like to put on my Australian values cap and measure it up if this team passes muster. Are they dinky-die and true blue on Aussie first principles? So the first one, a rolled gold Aussie principle of do your time. Aussies love when people do apprenticeships and hate line cutters, and they hate short cutters. People that don't want to do their apprenticeship and go straight to dessert without the hard work, we don't like them. The PNG team was first floated, as you can see there, in 1985 alongside Auckland, according to this Rugby League Week story. And since 2014, the Hunters have humbly and quietly revolutionised the QRL with their big travelling crowds, enthusiasm and entertaining football. They've served their apprenticeship, they've been patient, and they've delivered impeccable work. A fair go. PNG was an Australian territory till 75. There was no violent confrontation like Vietnam overthrowing the French, or Konfrontasi in Malaysia. One flag went up, one flag went down, hands were shaken as friends. After independence, lots of Aussies stayed on and played big roles in the new PNG, a rare thing for an exited colonial power. We have one little brother in this world who's given us nothing but love. And they have fallen hard for our game of rugby league, the only sport in the world founded on the principle of inclusion. Since Lalta Atoy in Australia in 1981 and Philip Ralda in England in 1983, there have been 52 players who played in the UK and France professionally, and 25 players in the old Brisbane Rugby League, New South Wales Rugby League, and the new NRL. The talent pipeline is significant, it's proven, and also includes many players that were fish that got away because of the lack of opportunity. Talent is distributed equally, but opportunities are not, and it's time to fix that. Our little brother wants to have a go and deserves a fair go, not to be a second-class citizen for rugby league. So for once and only time in my life, I'm channeling Kevin Rudd, who once said during his ochre phase, fair shake of the sauce bottle. Aussies love a bargain, and have they seriously got a good one here? When I hear the bleating about the $350 million, 10-year, $35 million a year price tag for the PNG team, it's always good to look at the alternative. What is the opportunity cost? According to my mate ChatGPT, the cost of fortifying Northern Australia, aggregating 20 different military sources, over that same 10-year span would be between $30 and $45 billion. This includes new northern bases, layered air missile defence, signals, ship upgrades, sensors, airfields, munitions, railport staging, radar, maritime surveillance planes, pipelines, forward stocking long-range launchers, and fuel reserves from Broome to the Cocos and Keeling Islands to Torres Strait around to Townsville. So let's assume Australian mates rates, so we'll go with the $45 million cost, especially with fly-in, fly-out workers, material shortages, and cost blowouts in remote areas. So $4.5 billion a year over 10 years versus $35 million per year is taxpayers' money well spent. That's a saving to bring a tear to the eye of even the stingiest CFO. So in short, if there's a greater cost-saving project for Australian taxpayer dollars, I'd like to see it. It's brilliant checkbook diplomacy with an outrageous return on investment, cheap as chips, and a steal at 100 times the price. And with all China's security deals off the table, how lucky are we to have rugby league as a negotiating currency? It's literally worth more than gold. And what would happen if we didn't have the soft power of rugby league to engage our regional partners? Exhibit A, the Solomon Islands. Principle 4, standing by your mates. As you travel through life, it's only in adversity that you find out who your real friends are. Whilst the countries we think are our best friends have abandoned us in adversity, our true friends remain by our side. Great Britain drew the Singapore line in World War II and abandoned us. And we've been treated terribly by the US in our latest round of trade negotiations. New Zealand have never recovered from the underarm and Farlap. And all this time, our best friend has been there, right under our nose, while we looked out to the world for love. When Japan entered PNG at Rabaul in early 1942, just 7 weeks after Pearl Harbor, there was no England, New Zealand, or Americans by our side. Our tired, exhausted soldiers, many suffering PTSD from fighting in North Africa, were on their own. If Japan took Port Moresby, the Australian mainland would be isolated. Japan had swept through Asia and the Pacific with a very seductive story to tell. one of overthrowing the colonial oppressor, positioning themselves as liberators and enablers of independence. Some fell for it. Factions of Myanmar, India, Thailand, Indonesia and the Philippines all collaborated with the Japanese, but not the 50,000 Fuzzy Wuzzy Angels who stood side by side from jungle trail to jungle trail with their Aussie brothers. Thousands lost their lives to the Japanese for taking sides with the Aussies, including mass executions in Wewak and Madang. They carried supplies, built bases and airfields and other infrastructure, and evacuated the sick and wounded from the fighting in nearly inaccessible terrain using their local knowledge and networks. Whilst Australians get misty and flock in pilgrimage to complete the Kokoda Trail, like they do in Gallipoli, how quickly we forget when we return to our lives. While giant statues of New Zealand and Australian soldiers man the entries to Anzac Bridge in Sydney, where are the statues to our brave PNG brothers? Why aren't they central to our Anzac tradition? If a core Aussie principle is standing by your mates when they're in a fight, then we have no better friends than the brave warriors of PNG. They took care of us in our darkest hour. We bled together and died together, and we've let them down since. We literally have the key to happiness for between 12 or 18 million, depending on who's counting. After years of neglect, we now have an opportunity to repay their loyalty, and bravo to those who've enabled it. The last remaining Fuzzy Wuzzy Angel of Kokoda died in 1917. Could there be a better way to preserve their memory than through the new team? And number 5, get on with it. Many here will remember the old one days in cricket when the batsman needed a nudge along, people would yell, get on with it, and that's how I feel. It's going to happen, there's no use fighting it. They've always supported us and we've always bailed on them until now. They've tied it up with wire, they've copped it sweet, they've done their time, and we've taken the piss, we've come the raw prawn, and it's time to stand by our mates. They have met the very high Australian bar on all Australian principles. Should our brothers on the battlefield join us on the football field? I say bloody oath. So to conclude the 26th annual Tom Brock Memorial, I'd like to end with a PNG cultural concept. In PNG Tok Pisin or Pidgin, there is a concept called Tro My Lek, which means to thrust your leg out for a great journey. And Mr. Yuwa, thank you, sharpened it for me and said you should say Tro My Lek One Time, which means a great journey made together. Thank you for so much for listening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, let's hear it again for Patrick. That was certainly fantastic. He raised some interesting points, and as we've seen in some recent events, it's certainly a topical subject. To examine some of those issues more closely, we've assembled a great panel. Patrick's going to remain on stage, but we're going to ask a couple of special guests to join him for our discussion. So would you please welcome to the stage Mr. Ponabe Yuwa, the Sydney-based consul for Papua New Guinea, and Brad Walker, the senior journalist at the NRL. All right. I'm only going to ask 3 questions, basically,
only by regulation.
to the panel. Consul, I might start with you. Your reaction to the announcement. There must be great excitement amid the naysayers.
Is it already on?
Yes, yeah.
Wow, thank you. This is pleasant. Thank you, Patrick, for the invite, first of all, and
My pleasure.
bringing together such a impressive following. Rugby league, well, when there's a rugby league game on, whether it's state of origin or a grand final, where in Australia, in any gathering before a TV screen, you can hear the pin drop. Yeah, in Papua New Guinea, the only time the criminals or rascals, we call them, have a rest is on a day when rugby league is on. In other words, on a day when rugby league is on, don't worry about how you park your car. Don't worry about how you handle your wallet. It's okay. Don't worry about how you send a woman out, in the bikinis or what. Don't worry. They're safe. So in that regard, yes, I think it's awesomely welcome. We are absolutely over the moon. Patrick, as for the history and where we have come from, You just summed it up so nicely. I have nothing to add. But you give a top 5 to you. I think from now on, I think the rest will be history. Thank you.
Brad, you described the inclusion of the team from PNG as one of the most pivotal moments in the growth of international rugby league. In what way?
Well, I think Papua New Guinea, we've seen the rise of Tonga and Samoa in the Pacific. We've now got at least 5 teams that are capable of winning the World Cup. And I don't think it's too far away before Papua New Guinea and Fiji as well, will be challenging. But one thing that's different, that stands out with Papua New Guinea, is the size of the population and their love and their passion for rugby league, and their knowledge and understanding of the game. And there's no doubt that the team, with an NRL team coming into the competition in 2028, is going to really, I suppose, finally harness that potential that's up there, because there's like tens of thousands of players, of potential players, and what they need is something to aspire to, which is playing in the NRL competition. They need opportunity, as Patrick mentioned, and they need pathways and structure, because, as I said, there's so many players up there. There's not enough grounds. They just love playing, and there's people. Every ground you go past is an absolute dirt pitch, and the reason it's a dirt pitch is because there's people playing on it from sun up to sun down, and if there's lights, they're playing, 24/7. Some of the junior games on the good pitches, they have to limit the amount of time that they can play to, potentially like 7 minutes each way, just so that everybody can get a game. But there's a lot of unstructured rugby league up there, and what the new team is going to do, and what it's already done, is it's created pathways and the opportunity now to I suppose hand-pick the best young talent and put them into systems and structures, which will then they'll receive obviously top-line coaching, and they'll be identified, and they'll have pathways not just to the new PNG team, but to all of the teams in the NRL, and that's obviously going to lead to a stronger Consul team. And we're also, since 2017, the 2017 World Cup, we've seen the rise of women's rugby league and the Orchids, and that's just gone from strength to strength, and there'll be an opportunity there as well. So yeah, I was just saying, Papua New Guinea has got a big population. They love rugby league. There's so much talent up there. They are the Penrith of the Pacific, and there's more kids playing up there than what there are in Penrith, and I've got no doubt that they are going to be a real force to be reckoned with.
Everyone's very excited about the inclusion, and it's great to see that there's so much positivity about it, but I don't think anyone pretends that it's not without its challenges. I might ask each of you what you think is the biggest challenge facing them in the short term. Patrick, might start with you, if we can.
I think managing the narrative and building resilience. If a couple of things go wrong, I can see the naysayers just jumping on it straight away, and I think every rugby league club has made major mistakes, from salary cap and a whole range of things. So I think holding the line on the positive narrative, I think, is going to be important for at least the first 5 years for it to get up and going, and we just really need to counter the negativity and just flood the zone with the positives that this team is achieving.
Mr. Yuwa, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you see facing them?
Definitely what they call teething issues, putting the house in order at home. I think that's a huge challenge. At home, there's no structure, so putting that in place is the biggest challenge we face. And in Australia, I think the acceptance part of it. Australians have to learn to accept Papua New Guinea team. That's a big challenge, isn't it? I can imagine that, because I watched rugby league in Australia as a student some 33 years ago, and now as a worker in Sydney, the heart of NRL. It's you don't want to sit next to an Aussie and support another team, do you? So yeah, acceptance I think is the biggest challenge. Are you ready to accept?
What about you, Brad?
Let's leave
Sorry.
it at that.
Keep going, no, Mr. Yuwa, keep going if you wish. Do you want to keep talking?
Yeah.
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 You hadn't, I didn't know if you'd finished your response, sorry.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done. Acceptance, acceptability is, for me, is the biggest challenge. Please accept us. We are here.
We will.
Brad, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing them at the moment?
Yeah, I see the biggest challenge being the same as the greatest opportunity. There's so many players up there. There's so many people that want to play the game that trying to select those players, trying to create the structures and the pathways, pretty much from nothing, and doing it so quickly is going to be hard. Like there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of potential talent, but those players need to be put into, as I said, into structures so that they can be developed to make them NRL ready. And I think that's going to be really hard. And I think I just know, speaking to Joey Grimmer up there when he first went up there, and he's done a great job with the young Kummels or the junior Kummels, who had a draw with the junior Kangaroos last year and pushed them to the limit the year before, and hey, maybe this year they're going to beat them, right? So Joey's done a great job at handpicking players, and that had never really been done before. So 2023 was the first year, and Joey said he'd go out and he'd watch so many players, and he'd see so many talented players, and he'd obviously want to see more of them, and he'd go around and he'd sort of select possibles and probables and those sort of teams. But then he said he'd send messages or emails or whatever to those players, and they'd never respond. And he virtually had to get to the point where he had to go around and basically knock on their doors. And so just communicating, getting the players to understand the structures, what's involved in those pathways, so that they can pick the best players, the best young talent. I think that's going to be the hardest part. There's so many kids up there with potential, but actually then then helping them to reach that potential is going to be a bit of a challenge, and making sure that you pick the right ones. And I think also, what's really important to that is having the right people in places, whether they're coaches or whether they're officials of the new club, and right across the game up there as well. It's not just the players, but it's the coaches and the administrators. So just getting that right is going to be the biggest challenge.
I spoke with Ray Dibb, who's on the board of the PNG, big former Bulldogs chairman, for those who remember him, and he's an apology for the night. He's got a family function on that late notice, but he's very excited about Joey Greimer and the other people they've got employed in those key positions to try and get those junior pathway structures right.
Well, I think we can see just in the 2 years basically that Joey's been up there and the people have been employed, and they're obviously they're doing work with coaches to upskill coaches and Tony Archer's up there as well. So they're trying to lift the standard of the game, and the competition up there it's the third best league in the world, right, after the NRL and the Super League, and that's certainly what they're aiming to. And everything that we do in the competition here, they're trying to replicate up there, whether it's video referees or independent doctors, all of those things. So they're really trying to lift the standard of the game up there. And there's some, you said, great people already working up there. And it's just really important that that the quality of those people, that there's, I suppose, more of those people, and that we continue to provide that support to the game and to the team up there.
I suppose it's a bit like the old Field of Dreams saying, if you build it, they will come. Finally, I'd like to ask each of you, in terms of getting ready, how do they set up the foundations for success? What do you see is most vital to that, and so that they can, in 5 and 10 years' time, when we look back and say, geez, they ticked all the boxes? Pat, we might start with Mr. Yuwa.
Oh, no. That's a tough one for me. Because really, where there's a will, there's a way. So any little effort put in should show that the investment of time, energy, willpower, all the strength we put in, that it was worth it. Because at the end of the day, it depends on what you are after. Are you after the trophy, the cup, or are you after human relations? For me, we are in for the relationship part of it, not for the trophy, because trophy is made of, we don't know. We don't know what it's made of. There's huge elements that goes in there, and craftsman goes in. We don't know. We lift it up and we're finished. We're done. But if you can remember the mateships and friends you make, and the wonderful companionship you build over time, and things that will happen in the social sector, that's really what we're after. Because right now, I think that we were at a stage where Australia was going one direction and Papua New Guinea was going in the opposite direction. I think rugby league has potential to bring us together as people. Because it's about having common denominators. What do you identify with? We have great sportsmen in this country. Well, Papua New Guinea, has people. We can contribute, the human beings. We can work together in many fields, and sports is just one of them. It's only the beginning. We've learned to work together during the Kokora days in 1942. I walked the Kokora track as a young man when I was in high school in 1978. I saw that bushes were growing and there was not even a footpath. Lucky I had a bush knife to kill him. I rode him on the 7 mountains, climbing the 7 mountains up and down like this to walk the path. From there on, afterwards, for the next 30 years, nothing was done on the track. Until about 2000, I think some activities started happening. And Australia finally found, its way back to where it should have started. That's what I thought. Because how can you forget Kokora? Australia went to fight. Australian blocks went to fight in Gallipoli. Yeah. It was not an Australian war. It was that they were fighting for the British, because Australia did not exist at that time. Australia came sometime later and fought in Kokora for Australia, and you won. In Gallipoli, you lost. Yeah. So who was there when you won? Yeah, you cannot afford to forget that part, isn't it? There we are. It's about friends finding out that we nearly lost each other and coming back together. I think that's what it's all about. Thank you.
Patrick, what do you see as the most important step in setting up the foundations for success?
I think this $150 million compound, I want to be like Club Med. I want players clambering to get in there for no cost of living, everything paid for, tax-free, and I just want to hear tales of joy that there's a rugby league island, an NRL island's been set out, and they're having problems now because all the players want to go up there.
Brad, you putting your hand up to be a journalist on the island? What do you see as the setting up the...
I think that they've just got to get it right. We all need to be patient. Everyone needs to be patient, because this is a long-term journey, and it's been a long-term getting here. I think Patrick pointed out that it was 40 years ago, 1985, that we started, or that there was a bid from the Port Moresby Vipers, I think, to join the competition. So it's been 40 years to get here, and so we shouldn't expect overnight success. And like the real purpose or the reason that the PNG government in particular and the Australian government have been so keen to have a NRL team in the NRL, it's about bringing the two countries together, but it's also about inspiring the people of Papua New Guinea and lifting the standards of quality of life up there, offering opportunities, which I think it's going to do. So I think that's really important. But as I said, from the success of the rugby league team, the most important thing is that, yes, we get some big name players up there that are going to make the team competitive and successful in the early years, but what's really is important is that we're developing players so that eventually this team is full of born and bred, homegrown Papua New Guinean talent.
Yeah, having been to Papua New Guinea myself with the Junior Kangaroos back in 2004, I understand what a beautiful place it is. It's like having the West Indies on your doorstep there. The beaches, the whole scenery, the food is absolutely sensational. Like, there's obviously a lot of attractions there, and I've never been able to understand why it hasn't been more of a tourist destination for Australians, and this will obviously change a bit of that. And the passion, the shared passion for rugby league, as you say, Mr. Yuwa, that is something that's very rare for us to share with another nation. Not all of Australia gets it, we understand that, but the intelligent parts, the two intelligent states do. So we'll try and educate the others. We're doing one bit by bit.
I think, Terry, what people don't understand as well is people think that people don't recognise or realise that there's also a lot of money in Papua New Guinea. This team will be really well supported. They'll be the most heavily sponsored team in the NRL. They'll have the biggest crowds as well, or they'll have the biggest number of fans. There's no doubt about that. Like, trying to get a ticket for that first game is going to be incredible, right? My understanding is that there's going to be the PNG Kumals have got some big sponsorship announcements coming up. There's global companies that are interested in the game up there as well. So there's going to be a lot of money pouring into Papua New Guinea and rugby league in particular on the back of this team. So like this, they're adding to our competition. They're bringing not just playing talent that's going to filter through to all the clubs, but they're also going to add to our competition financially. And I can't wait to see the first game in 2028 up there, because the scenes and the colour and the excitement, it's just going to go around the world, and it's going to take rugby league to another level, and it's really going to put rugby league on the map in countries that don't even know what rugby league is at the moment.
Yeah, certainly. It's customary that we take a few questions from the floor. So, Michael Adams, there he is, doing the job of 5 or 6 people tonight. You need one of those. So if anyone's got a question, we'll take, as I said, about 3 or so.
Comment first. The question, I was in Cairns about 6 or 7 years ago, and went to the local museum, and they had a display there on rugby league in North Queensland, far North Queensland, and I was astonished to find that there were actually teams flying up to PNG in the, I think it was in the 60s, competing, which it was amazing. But my question is, the photo you've got up there includes somebody with an AFL top on. The AFL's a fantastic marketing organisation. What are they doing in PNG?
They give away a lot of freebies. No, there was once it was 50-50 whether it would be rugby league or AFL in Port Moresby. There was a real battle of the codes, and rugby league won, but there's still a pretty strong native community that still plays the game. But rugby league took off and left it in its wake.
Got another question here?
Yep. Just to add to what Patrick said, so rugby league's we're now in Vegas, we've got a team in New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, obviously Perth is coming in, AFL, they're still trying to decide if they go in Tasmania.
Let alone a test match.
So who would be their dream opponent for round 1 2028?
Dream opponent is all of Australia. Let me just add something here. The name of the team competition is On. It was launched about 3 weeks ago by our Prime Minister in Port Moresby. And from how I heard him speak, he said even Australians are allowed to select, choose a name if you have one. So Prime Minister himself, he did his first inaugural. He selected his name and put it in the box, and I I happened to be lucky to be watching on TikTok when I saw it. So I said I was next to put it in. I asked for the address, the link, and I put mine in. And I'm not allowed to try to influence anybody, but I'm not allowed, seriously, but a huge breach of protocol. I choose a name called Fasiwasi Angels. Yes. And a lot of people ask me, why such name? And I said, well, there's only one thing that, among so many things we do together, that's the one that seems to be most, the one that we want to forget so fast. Why should we want to forget that name so fast? I think we have a generation of people who really, fought on the battle, about 50 kilometers of hard battle from the other northern side to heading towards Port Moresby. The people who actually felt the pain and suffering, they're all gone. There's probably one left. I don't know of anybody. I had one. There was one left when I participated in ANZAC last year. And he was very frail, so I haven't had more. But you see, if there was nobody left, if there's nobody left, then how do we convince the generation that's second generation, third generation, now the fourth generation? We're speaking to great-grandchildren now. How do we explain to them what Fasiwasi Angel is all about? Yeah. I think we can really Fasiwasi memories by having the team from Papua New Guinea called Papua New Guinea Fasiwasi Angels. Isn't it, I'm not asking you to nominate, I'm just saying, think about it. Think about what the name itself can do.
Political influence, I think they call it, don't they?
Not political, popular, supporter influence. Forget the politics. Yeah.
Another question down the back?
Can I just ask, I can't remember, in 2028 will the PNG NRLW team enter the comp as well? And if so, will the NRLW team will there be the same amount of enthusiasm and support, pathways, academies, structures, attendance, sponsorship, etc.? What's your views on that?
Yeah, so no, there won't be an NRLW team in 2028, but there are plans for an NRLW team further down the track. There might be a team, like, this is just an idea, right, but there might be a team that would come into the Queensland Cup, like the Hunters have, a women's team at first to help develop it. In terms of how successful a PNG NRLW team would be, well, if you go back to the 2017 World Cup, in the lead up to the 2017 World Cup, when the idea of the orchids was mooted, people threw rocks at the women while they trained and played up in Papua New Guinea. Now they turn out in huge numbers to support the PNG orchids. So it's changed. The narrative has changed, the acceptance of the team has changed, and it's changing society on the back of that. And so there's no doubt that a NRLW team would be really well supported, and I think it's really important that eventually there is a team, but it's going to take some time. The women have only been playing the game since 2017, so it will take time. But there's at least half a dozen Papua New Guinea women playing in the NRLW now, so there's a nucleus there, and there will be more and more coming, and we're seeing it with the junior orchids as well, how successful and the enthusiasm that the girls have got up there for playing the game. So yeah, I think in the future we will have an NRLW team.
Another couple, yeah?
Okay. What are the chances of the PNG team getting their first premiership before the Warriors?
comes down to NRL Island. The football guides I've found don't reward franchises very early in the piece, so the Warriors are long overdue.
Talk to Melbourne. I noticed, just on that though, I've spoken recently with the guys up at Redcliffe, and I know Tony Murphy, the chairman, he said he's met with some of the guys from the PNG bid about setting up what they did in terms of getting ready so that they can learn the lessons and implement that knowledge. So I think they're trying to tick all the boxes, as I said. Have we got any other questions? One more maybe? Yep? Two more, okay.
I just want to know how the tax-free dollars actually works. There's a fear that the Aussie players will come back to Australia and be double dipped. Will New Guinea cover all the taxes? They won't have to pay a cent. How's it going to work up there?
We'll leave that for the accountants. So.
I'm not allowed to look after the money.
Professional accounting advisory, but yeah, it's being sold as a tax-free benefit, and just like I suppose if you earn money up in Dubai or Abu Dhabi and you've earned it in that, but that's as far as my tax knowledge goes.
And last one, yeah.
So, congratulations. We all want the bid to succeed. You were allowed into the competition before the Perth Bears, but the Perth Bears are going to be in the competition before PNG. I thought it would have been brilliant if Mal had been the first coach of PNG. Are you concerned, or should the PNG team be concerned that maybe a lot of the best players are now going to be sucked up by the Perth Bears? And who is going to be that figurehead that's going to sell the PNG Angels, I think would be a great name, in Australia?
First it was the Angels. Never forget that one. That's what it's all about. Forget who wins, who is in, who is out. As long as you remember the first it was the Angels. It's a perfect fit to remind us that we started together and we have to finish together. That's what it's all about. Whether the team win anything at all, it doesn't matter. Or does it? I don't know.
I think when the Hunters first came in, everybody was paid the same amount. They were an egalitarian team, and a bunch of relative no-names became household names in Papua New Guinea. I think Xavier Coates is one at the age of 24. He won't be on last legs. We were all hoping Justin Olam's knees held up and but they couldn't hold out. That was a shame. But there's 7 Kumals playing in Super League right now of excellent standard, and I think I'd like to think Alex Johnson might use the last of his legs. Sorry, Brad, if you were heading that direction, might use the last of his legs for a glorious Arthur Beetson style Queensland cameo, just to kick it off with a bit of star power and then let it free. Brad?
Yeah, Alex Johnson's on the record as saying he wants to be the number one player, and I think that's incredible that the greatest try scorer in Premiership history is going to, he is a Kumal, and that he could be the number one signing. There's, in terms of like a figurehead, that's obviously to be decided, and that's why I suppose no one's rushing into it. But I've got no doubt there's going to be plenty of people interested in that job, and maybe I don't know, Adrian Lamb would be someone, wouldn't he? Who'd be, absolutely. I think that a lot of people would think he'd be suitable for that. He's been really successful over in the UK, but who knows? Maybe Ivan Cleary and Nathan Cleary could go up there. Mary Fowler's from Papua New Guinea, so hey, But we want to. So I think what's most important is to get that right, not to rush into that sort of decision, to make sure. But they're the decisions that are really, really important to the success of this franchise, is making sure that those key appointments are right, that it's the right people for that. So it'd be great. I mean, Wayne Bennett's a name that's been mentioned as well, and he's going to. And he's got a connection to Papua New Guinea. His brother was up there, coached the team, and Wayne's been involved before. So, who knows? Maybe Wayne will be coaching director, but I've got no doubt that there'll be someone, someone of that ilk will be involved, and that's obviously pretty crucial that there is someone like that who can set this team up.
Final thoughts from all three of you, briefly, just to wrap us up. Mr. Yuwa, after you.
Thank you. Simple. It's not an appeal. It's said we are here, so let's celebrate and let's get on. Rugby league is number one, world's number one sports. I've never been had a different opinion to that. So all I say is let's get on with it. Let's all join up and let the world know that we have a sports, that we can make it a world sports. Let's forget cricket and soccer and all those. Let's promote rugby league, and you cannot do it without Papua New Guinea. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Brad?
I think Patrick should have the last say, because this has been fantastic, Patrick. A great lecture, and the history of rugby league in Papua New Guinea is really inspiring. Look, I just want to say that I've been, probably like Patrick, I grew up sort of, I suppose, dreaming of a team in Papua New Guinea or a team in New Zealand and those sort of things, and it's actually about to come true. But I didn't realise until I went up to Papua New Guinea, which is probably the first time I actually went there for rugby league first time I went there ever was only 5 years ago. But I thought I was passionate about rugby league, and my friends and people I know were passionate, but they just love the game up there. They absolutely love it. They want to succeed. It's awesome to see how much they love it and what it means to them, and what a difference it can make to that country. And as has been said here, they're our brothers, our cousins. Alex Johnson, he is eligible for the Kumals, and he's eligible for the Indigenous All-Stars through the same relative, through his grandmother. That's how close, we share the same DNA with the people of Papua New Guinea. And I think, they, as I said, and we share a love for rugby league. They probably love it more. And I just think that first game is going to be, I'm going to do everything I can to get there. That first game is going to be unbelievable. I'm looking forward to Tonga versus Samoa in a Pacific Championships. That's sort of a game that's just been built up. It's got so much anticipation about. But I think the PNG team's first game in the NRL is going to be on another level. And in terms of who they would like to play, if you've been to Papua New Guinea, you will know they want to play the Brisbane Broncos.
And lastly, the man of the night.
I'd like to say congratulations to Peter V'landys for his role in this. Vegas, Papua New Guinea, conservative. Look at the AFL now, it seems like a shriveled husk in comparison to the NRL. 5 years ago it felt the other way. They just felt like they were growing, but GWS has become their Vietnam. They've kind of retreated. The girls play out of Newtown now. They've dropped GWS. It's just the Giants now. It's like, okay, wasn't quite the brand promise when you stomped in, and they learned the hard way. So Peter V'landys has shown incredible nerve on this to stick to it, and he's extracted his pound of flesh for the game. Each club's getting $3 million. But on the highest level, I'm a rugby league historian, and I like to think, I think back to those 22 men that first met in the hotel in northern England to start the game of rugby league, because they were getting treated very badly by those in the south of England. These factory workers were turning up with broken arms and broken legs, and they weren't getting compensated for it. So they started this game to just include everybody, and how proud they would be to see this particular evolution of that little game they started when they broke away from rugby union, to see that it's captured the hearts of 18 million people. And you see V'landys now can rightfully say we're the biggest sport in the Pacific, because the Papua New Guineans are 75% of the Pacific population. So V'landys has got his narrative finely tuned. But I just think about how proud they would be of this tangent of the game. I remember going up to watch some Māori teams play in the far north of New Zealand. The Ngāpuhi tribe of New Zealand they were the Warriors, and they've got a breakaway league up there. They've broken away from the New Zealand Rugby League, and they play on their own. And I remember going up there and getting this same feeling that I get when I've been at Papua New Guinea games, and that is, this is their absolute heart and soul. Every sinew of their being has been invested in this game, and they just want to be respect for playing it. And right here with this team, we've given the ultimate respect to our best friend, and I'm just so proud to be involved in it in any way. So, welcome aboard, Mr. Yuwa. Not before time.
Well, they're going to carry the hopes of the nation, but there's also a tremendous amount of support for them on this side of the Timor Sea from all rugby league fans and from many, many Australians. We might ask you to remain on stage while we wrap things up with a vote of thanks from Michael Adams, another one of our Tom Brock Bequest Committee, who continues to build the legacy of the great man. I reckon Tom would be happy looking down tonight from Rugby League Valhalla. So, over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Terry. We've got some food coming and even a bar tab, so I'll hurry up to get us to that. But on behalf of the Tom Brock Committee, I want to thank all our panellists tonight. Patrick, that was just an amazing lecture and such wonderful stories, and it really feels like we've only just scratched the surface, so I can't wait to hear more of them over the next couple of years. Brad, to you and to the NRL, we really appreciate the support from you and being here tonight. This is maybe the boldest thing that the NRL has ever done. I don't think there's any doubt this is the boldest venture that we've ever been on, and it's so exciting to get the perspective tonight. But Mr. Yuwa and the other Papua New Guinean representatives here tonight, for those of us who really believe that rugby league is the greatest game of all, the passion and love of PNG for rugby league is just something so special, and it's something I don't think we celebrate anywhere near enough. So it means so much to us to have you here with us tonight. We embrace this wonderful history, and we can't wait for the stories that are going to tell themselves over the next few years and decades. So this has just been so wonderful. So can everyone just give a big round of thanks to our panelists?